Pucks with Haggs
is brought to you by Prize Picks and the Game Time app.
Welcome to another edition of the Pucks with Haggs podcast, powered by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I believe this is the 129th episode of the Pucks with Haggs podcast. Thanks for listening. I have with me today friend and colleague Mick Colageo. Mick, please tell everybody where they can find your work, my friend.
Rink Wrap, my blog. I link to it on X and Facebook, and I'm in the hockey news seasonal issues. Those are big stuff.
Absolutely. Go check those out. I am your host, Joe Haggerty. You can find my work at joehaggerty.substack.com. Subscribe for a premium membership, and you get all of my NHL and Bruins writing sent straight directly to your inbox. You can also find my work at the Boston Sports Journal. I write 3 columns a week on the Bruins at bostonsportsjournal.com, so check that out as well. Let's also thank our friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, our friends at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets, any kind of tickets, sports, comedy, concerts, whatever. Use Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it, Mick?
It's a game time decision, and why? Because it's game time.
Game time. That's right, Mick. All right, let's get into it, my friend. Let's start with the game last night, and I believe not televised, not on the radio. I did not watch any of it. I could not find any pirated.
Because at Boston, they put it on BostonBruins.com.
Did you watch it?
And I found this out at the last second and watched it.
Oh, you did watch it. Good. I did not watch it last night. I did not know it was going to be on BostonBruins.com.
Me neither until like 1 second. Some of the stuff, I swear they must figure it out like 10 seconds before the puck drops.
Yeah, right at the second where the puck is dropping. They're like, all right, here it is. We got it. But I didn't. Admittedly, my kids had photo days at their hockey practices last night, so there was a lot going on in the Haggerty household. Oh yeah, so I was doing that as well. But honestly, I had a feeling it was not going to be one of those games that you needed to see. Even though the venue's cool, any game in Quebec City's great. Patrice Bergeron went up there with the team as kind of an ambassador for Quebec City, which I think is awesome too. The whole thing. The whole idea behind going to Quebec City and playing a game at Videotron against another team preseason, I am fully in favor of it. I'm sure it was a big event up there, but not much to write home about as far as the action goes. I think LA dominated the game for the most part, won 4-1. Patrick Brown, I believe, scored the only goal for the Bruins.
A beauty.
Was it a beauty? I didn't see it.
It was so non-Patrick Brown goal I've ever seen.
That's good.
Zadorov gave him a beautiful head, man. He split the defense, went right through, bang, top corner. It was beautiful. Just gorgeous end-to-end. It was like 1975 Buffalo Sabres, and ironically, Patrick Brown. The guy who's like the ultimate grinder, the Chris Wagner of this current group.
But I like to see that because Chris Brown is a guy that I think brings a lot of value to the table and things that you might not.
Patrick, I'm sorry.
Patrick Brown is
I steered you wrong.
That's okay. Patrick Brown's a guy that you might not, there's nothing sexy about his game, but there's a lot of things that he brings value to the table with a lot of the sort of detailed small parts of the game that he does and the work ethic, the leadership. He's a great leader in the AHL. I remember Riley Duran talking about what a treat it was to sit next to Patrick Brown on the bench and play in a line with him and how much he learned, kind of plays a Crash Davis role a little bit for the Providence Bruins with the young guys when they come in, which is invaluable as well. So it's great to see him get on the score sheet and score a nice goal. Anything else? Any other impressions from the game? Any things you took from just watching that game last night, Mick?
I came away with a real sense that the Bruins are going to have a hard time generating offense with this team without everybody in the lineup and everybody playing well.
Yep.
I'd have a hard time. LA was not magical, but just a good, solid defensive team effort. And the Bruins had a hard time generating stuff. It was I know they're not a shot volume team under Jim Montgomery, but it wasn't as though they were moving the puck well out of their zone.
Yeah.
But going through the middle and maintaining anything going into Los Angeles zone or recovering pucks, that part of the game was not happening. I really felt like the Bruins have a lot of work to do in order to be viable, and it won't matter who's in net for them if they can't recover some dumps and if they can't carry in with possession. There's a lot of offsides. There's a lot of misconnects, disconnects.
Well, they also let's also admit, right? They didn't bring their A team last night. They had some good players in there, but I wouldn't say they brought.
It wasn't the NHL game we saw the other night in Boston.
Right.
It wasn't quite that, but what it tells me is that anything short of that, which makes me think in the regular season when it ramps up, one injury.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how are they going to do, because I don't see any kind of next man up right now with this team. I don't see any kind of ability to mitigate losses. I feel like the whole team needs to be there and they need to be going in order for it. Now, maybe all hell breaks loose when that happens. We'll see. But anything less than 100% attendance and accounting and right now, just a good defensive effort by an opponent. And I don't like what I saw last night. It was like, oh boy, this could be like 2009-10 kind of rough patch kind of land for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of that is an indictment on Fabian Lysell, Merkelov. Like Lysell was back last night and played. I'm assuming it was mostly a forgettable night for him as well.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't see a guy who was trying to play his game, and really I didn't see a great amount of evidence that he was trying to build his game as much as that he was trying to just succeed at his game. And his game has a ceiling to it, and at this level, and this isn't even the regular season yet. If Lysell scored Patrick Brown's goal last night, Twitter would be ablaze.
Right.
And everybody would be telling Don Sweeney how ashamed he should be that he hasn't already given this guy a platinum stick,
right.
In front of the fans. I mean, it's unbelievable how much they're ready to drive Swayman to the airport, but Lysell, they're giving so much rope to, and it hasn't done jack crap.
Yep.
I mean, there's got to be some reality here at some point.
Well, there's a reason why all those guys were sent down as quickly as they were. That was a message that I think there was no mistaking that was a message. As much as they say, yeah, Providence camp was starting, we want them to get work down there. Maybe they'll be up again, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. Like, if they were really, really playing well, they would have stayed. They wouldn't have sent them down.
That's right.
I think everybody getting sent down as early as they did en masse to the Providence camp was like, none of you guys were really good enough to force our hand and to really take somebody's job and take a decision away. And it goes back to the soliloquy that Brad Marchand had when I asked him about, like, some of those guys looking pretty good in preseason, and he immediately went into the pretty good's not good enough, like not even close. Like, and you could tell at that point, the players, the management, everybody was disappointed in what they had brought to the table in camp. And as much as I hate to say it, Mick, it's more of the same from Fabian Lysell. Like, at points, Don Sweeney has talked about, or referenced really good camps that Lysell has had, or good starts to camp that Lysell. I was like, when did this happen? Like, as far as I'm concerned, he's never really impressed me that much in any training camp setting. He's never really pushed that hard for a job. I think more often than not, he's been kind of a disappointment when you watch him in these training camps, where he can't really get noticed and he can't really push for anything. And frankly, sometimes when you see him on the ice, it doesn't even seem like he really wants it that much. Like, you don't even see the sort of effort level or anything flash there. It's just like, where is what's the talk about this guy? Why is there so much excitement about it? And I know he does it in Providence, and I've seen him do it in Providence. I've not seen him do that nearly enough in a setting with NHL guys around to get me excited about what he might bring to the table. Like, and until that changes, like, I wouldn't even consider him like a legit factor to, as you said, if a guy gets injured and you need to bring somebody up from Providence, that, somebody that could come in and give you a little jump or a little energy. Like, he doesn't look like that guy at all. At least Merkelov, I think, showed that he could be competent at the NHL level. And it seemed like he was making some plays when he was up there. Like, you've got a little confidence that he might be able to do something.
His game's a lot more rounded out and accomplished.
Yeah.
He's a little older, and he's got a lot more polish and acumen in his overall game. Lysell's more of a project at this stage. And he still is, even though there's substantial improvement. Last year was better than the year before by a long shot. This year, he already looks like that this could be a plus year for him, another step of progress for him. Yep. But it's not NHL progress. No. Maybe in season, maybe down the road, maybe after a chunk of weeks or months. I don't know how much it's going to take. You never know when a player is going to figure that out. I do see with him that he has an ability to gain separation in the American League that he does not have in the NHL. In the NHL, the game goes fast, and it's only going to go faster. Like Monty said last season, early at this time, every 10 games, the league gets a little faster. If Lysell can't gain separation in the preseason, what's it going to be like for him? Oh, if you put him if you got to play with some talent, you know what? Just show me in the increments of what the situations you have in a preseason game, which is a hybrid of National League and American League, that you can gain separation. Because if you're not going to play through people, you better be able to show me you can play around them. And right now, I'm not seeing enough of either to tell me that he's made any kind of impression that warrants consideration for his varsity spot off the hop.
No. And like that's probably going to happen because he steadily performs in Providence, if he does like he did last year, and he can sort of turn the page on a disappointing training camp quickly and just focus on doing the right things at the AHL and playing well.
And I'll tell you, and from my end of it, I know it's the hype machine. I don't consider this a failure for him. I'm kind of more encouraged by him right now than I was a year ago at this time. Yeah. What I need to see is he probably needs another year in the American League at least. And maybe toward the end of that year, we will have seen enough that maybe warrants another look. Maybe it happens sooner than that. I don't know. But so far, I'm not seeing him getting to the level that he needs to be at in order to really be viable here for the Bruins.
I agree.
Not yet.
I agree. And maybe that happens at some point. If he plays well enough in Providence, he'll sort of put up enough body of work where if, an opportunity arises in the NHL level, he'll get a shot. And I hope he does well with it. I think the talent is there, even though I don't think everything is coming together for him right now. And on paper, he's one of the few guys that I think if they did get injuries in their top six, or they did have a need for a top six guy, he's one of the few guys I think with the talent to be able to do it. If everything else is there, but it remains to be seen if he's going to be able to put all that together. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America and the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Instead of battling thousands of other players that could be pros or sharks, you simply pick more or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you just watch the winnings roll right in. It's fun and pretty simple. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. I love Prize Picks because I'm going to take some of my observations from other fantasy football and throw them right into Prize Picks. Players that are going off. Kyler Murray had a great start to the season. He's kind of cooled off a little bit now, so I maybe would stay away from Kyler Murray. But that's just an example of the kind of things you can go after in Prize Picks. This week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at the football board and selecting Justin Jefferson for more than 83.5 receiving yards and Patrick Mahomes for less than 267.5 passing yards. Tyreek Hill for more than 97.5 receiving yards and Saquon Barkley for more than 67.5 rushing yards. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. What's better than that? It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, so let's move on here. Anything else? I haven't talked to you, Mick, after the last few preseason games. Anything else you're thinking as far as the roster goes, as far as battles for positions? Last show, I had Steve and Steve Conroy and Mark Diver on, and we talked a little bit about Poitras and Tyler Johnson and how they seem to be sort of like, vying for the same spot. I think they're both going to make the NHL team, but it's a matter of like who's going to be in the 12 on a nightly basis and play. But seems to me though both those guys may end up making the NHL roster, and they've had good camps.
Yeah, I see Tyler Johnson as a guy they're going to have around, move around.
Yep.
Plug him here, plug him there, little power play here, little third line right wing there, maybe second line right wing there, situational stuff. It gives Monty an option to take a lot of looks as we go into the real hockey that matters. Poitras, I see much more in a narrow vein, even though he wanted to take a look at him at wing. That's what the preseason's for. Yep. I think from the get-go, it's the same as what they used to say about Studnicka, that he's a centerman. And that's what he is. And if he's not going to be 3C in Boston, he's going to be 1C in Providence. Right. So, and that's because that's what he needs in order to meet the Bruins' needs. If he can't be the 3C on a regular basis, I think the best place for him is to be the 1C in Providence. And I think I'll be pretty surprised if they were looking at it any other way where it concerns Poitras. And right now I'm leaning toward give him a chance to play 3C in Boston. He earned it last year. He performed okay. He had some growing pains. He got hurt. I don't think the injury.
Camp, though, Mick. In his camp, I think he's been very good. He's at another level than those other young guys we just talked about.
Absolutely. In fact, some of the instinct that he's shown at knowing how to close off a player who's trying to rub the puck around the boards in his own end and cut him off at the half wall and just put the body in front of him and take over the puck and look up, make a play, make the right play. Just all of that little stuff right now is really there for him in a way that it's not for a lot of other guys. And so I'm looking at him and saying, you know what? Let's plug this and play it and see how it is. And if 10 games in, it's like he looks a little overwhelmed or he's not quite back, then you got to have a discussion, and then talk about what do we do. But right now, he's my 3C.
Yeah, and the nice thing about Tyler Johnson is he's a veteran guy where, like, if he ends up your 13th forward a little bit, that's perfectly fine. He can deal with that. He's a veteran guy. He will know how to be ready to play if he sits for a couple of games. You don't want the young guy in that position, but I think Tyler Johnson, you feel more comfortable about being in that position.
Absolutely, and overall dynamics, his presence this year is Shattenkirkian.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, leadership wise, the way he plays, like all that stuff, I think he'll be really good for the team. I do think, and I mentioned this in the last podcast, it could go the same way as Danton Heinen, though, where with Jeremy Swayman up in the air, until they've got resolution there, you're probably not going to sign Tyler Johnson to a contract. Danton Heinen did not sign his contract with the Bruins until October 30th last year. I think it was like 8 or 9 games into the season. So something like that may develop with Tyler Johnson as well, where it takes a little while to get him on the roster and to get things situated, but that's okay. I think I think Mark had mentioned this. I think the Bruins would have cut him loose by now if they didn't have intentions of keeping him.
Other guys around the league have already been cut loose in the same PTO situations. So.
Right. So I think he factors into their plans, and rightfully so. I think he's had a really good training camp, and he's shown that he can still play. He's still got game at 35 years old. So that was a good get for the Bruins, getting him on a tryout, because I think he's going to be a useful player for them, just like Heinen was last year. And they've started to show Don Sweeney, the Bruins NHL scouting staff, like I think they've shown, just as they've shown they can find diamonds in the rough at the AHL level that maybe aren't being valued in their organizations and bring them here and get more out of them.
Yeah, they've shown that
they know how to make the right calls with the guys they bring in on training camp invites. They know guys that are going to be good fits. They know guys that are still going to play. They do a really good job of bringing people in that are going to bring good value and do it while making $750K a year. That's really going to help your salary cap picture.
Absolutely. They're great at that. And they have been, and they continue to be. I think sorting out, now that Jones finally played last night and he showed the rust. Yeah. But he was out there slashing around and really trying, which was nice to see. So trying to figure out, I would assume we're going to see Jones. What do we got? One left? Washington?
Yeah, I think there's one left. Yeah.
Okay. So we're definitely going to see Jones again because they got him in last night. He played hard. It didn't look very good. He was a little sloppy and messy, but he really looked like, he was eager to really put himself out there and not worry about how he looked. And give him another game and then sort out your Koepke, your Tufte, your Jones.
Yep.
We know what Kastelik is. We know what's going to happen there with him and Beecher.
I like Kastelik a lot, and I think Bruins fans can already tell they're going to love him. Like, he is just involved in
He's been terrific. Yep. And so in his role, he's outstanding. It's almost so good that you wonder if they should kick him up a little bit. The only problem with that is, what do you do? How does it affect the rest of your roster if you do that? So, but you got to get ugly. You're going to score some ugly goals. And if he's your best option, I won't be too shocked if I see him get kicked up, because you can put Beecher where he is.
Yeah, and Beecher's looked better, I think, this year. He's shown some development where I think parts of his game are getting better after a year of NHL experience under his belt last year. So that might be a possibility as well. And then maybe Riley Duran gets a shot or a look at some point, depending on.
Right, because he was in that big cut.
Yep. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the big topic here, Mick. Jeremy Swayman continues to the news continues to come forth and develop here. The latest was some of Jeremy Swayman's thoughts on that were recorded on the Amazon Face-Off docuseries, which I'd been invited by the NHL to check that. I'll get a sneak preview of it a week or two ago. I was not able to do that. I know some other people were. And I've heard nothing but good things about this Amazon Face-Off series. It's supposed to be like sort of kind of similar to 24/7 was on HBO. So it's like all access, like the real stuff. The real coach is talking to the players, like real raw kind of life in the NHL stuff, which seems awesome. And I think fans are going to eat it up. But this quote, I don't know if it was sent by somebody. I saw it on Bleacher Report. I don't know if it was like a sneak preview of what he's going to say, but according on Jeremy Swayman on the Amazon docuseries said, hearing you're not worthy of what you think you're worthy of, that was hard to hear, talking about the arbitration process last year. You don't forget what was said. I wrote them down and I looked at them the other day and I had a couple check marks. My biggest knock was how I wasn't trustworthy in the playoffs. Check. And there's also a report yesterday, I think Pierre LeBrun was on TSN talking about the negotiations and saying he still thinks something's going to get done between the Bruins and Jeremy Swayman, that they're not that far apart as far as money and term. And frankly, if the Bruins are at 8 years, 7.8, and Jeremy Swayman's looking for 8 years, 8.5, they're not that far off. There's a middle ground there. They just
have to work out how do we both look like we didn't lose.
Right. Well, and the other part of it, though, that Pierre LeBrun was saying yesterday, and it seems obvious with the way things have played out, is that the Bruins are going to have to repair the relationship with Jeremy Swayman. And that is even more important than the money or the term is repairing what was damaged in all of this. If that's true and that's coming from Jeremy Swayman's side, both sides are extremely guilty of rolling in the mud in this. And why is it on the Bruins to repair their relationship with Jeremy Swayman? He's their side has been, squeaky clean in this entire thing. I think they should both probably have a handshake and say bygones and then it's over. But my question is, Jeremy Swayman was very bitter and salty about the arbitration process and never forgot it. Are we supposed to believe he's going to sign a long-term contract here and not forget some of the stuff that happened here, and that's not going to bother him and be something that he's going to be vocal about and it's going to be a problem? And not only that, I think the one thing Pierre LeBrun didn't talk about is the repairing the relationship with the fan base. I think there's a large faction of the fan base now that's not happy with Jeremy Swayman and the way this is played out, and that's going to have to be repaired too. I just think there's been damage done, I think, in these negotiations, for both sides. And I think it's going to be really difficult and it's going to be messy. If they come together and just agree on a long-term contract, this is not going to be sunshine and roses and rainbows. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Jeremy Swayman, and people are going to be ready to boo him if he does not play well, based on the way things have played out. And obviously the Bruins are going to get criticism for the way they handled it in the beginning, where they were trying to be nice guys about things and they kind of got, taken advantage of for, trading Ullmark early, for not going for salary arbitration, like some of the stuff that they did. There's gonna be criticism of that too. So
I'd say arbitration certainly could not have been a solution for them, because Swayman could choose a 2-year award if the Bruins took him to arbitration, and if he chooses a 2-year award, then he's UFA. So that's a non-starter as far as arbitration goes. But overall, yeah, absolutely. And I think that I'd like to think that the agent is the drama queen here.
Yeah.
And that trying to say,
I would say he definitely is to a degree, but let's be honest here. Jeremy Swayman talked multiple times about arbitration during the season last year and could not let it go. And that is a big part of everything that's going on here.
Which is a little surprising, considering if he's so educated on how these things go and how it all works, how the hell did he not know that if he took the team to arbitration,
right, that
the team was not going to come to the arbitration prepared to not take a beating?
Right. I agree.
I mean, and nothing they said this wasn't like Mike Milbury telling Tommy Salo that you're the most, telling an arbiter in front of Tommy Salo that this is the most poorly conditioned professional athlete I've ever seen.
Right.
And him leaving with tears streaming down his face,
Right.
I mean, this is not, this isn't like the old days. This is a highly professional, above board. You know what I'm not taking for granted, and it's probably going to be fine. But if I'm Don Sweeney, and I've met the media several times, and I have gone to great lengths to try to answer questions without crossing the fine lines presented to me in every tricky way possible to get me to divulge information that can be used to construct some sort of deduced reasoning on what the deal must be or the offer must be.
Right.
And he's cognizant of that all the time. And then Cam right next to him. So I'm surprised. I'd have 64 million reasons why I'd be playing right now. And Don Sweeney's like, he got to be thinking like, are you shitting me? I mean, there's no way this was a united front.
No, doesn't seem like it.
I think that there is a disconnect between those two all along. I mean, I don't think Don Sweeney traded Danton Heinen for Nick Ritchie. I don't think Don Sweeney fired Bruce Cassidy. I think that, he told us 3 weeks before he got fired that he had confidence in him and he was going to bring him back. And the next thing you know, he's gone. I mean, I think that this is classic meddling from above. Mm-hmm. And I think Cam saw no issues with what he had to say and expressing his feelings on it. It was great theater.
Mick, these are both guys, Don Sweeney and Cam Neely. These are both guys that went through the whole Harry Sinnen experience. So I'm sure they are absolutely rolling their eyes at the level of crocodile tears about arbitration going on right now, when I'm sure they handled it in a much different way than Harry and Michael O'Connell would have handled it back in the day if it was Cam or Donnie going to arbitration with them. And I'm sure that they're just rolling their eyes like, what, we have to repair a relationship. Like, did Harry ever repair a relationship with anybody after he
No. Did you hear the Gary Galley story?
No. What was that?
Oh yeah, well, Gary Galley went to arbitration, and Harry wound up trading him to Dallas for Gord Murphy, and so I guess he called Gary Galley after the arbitration was all over and asked him, and Gary Galley lost. He wound up getting this horrible offer, and the arbiter decided something that was just completely way off the charts bad for him. It wasn't fair at all. And then Harry told him on the phone, you got what you deserved. And Gary Galley still is like cheerfully laughing about this and saying, but this was Harry. This is what it was like dealing with, and I also find it just in general to be really ironic in this day and age. Whereas if you talk to the media, the fans, throughout the entire Harrison and the 3 decades that he was the president and usually GM of the Bruins, that they never won the Stanley Cup with him coming back 72, 73, going up until he fires Pat Burns and hands the keys to Mike O'Connell, even though OC's fingerprints have been on the team for 5 years.
Yeah.
So all that time, it was always Harry won't spend the money. Harry won't spend the money. Harry does Jacob's biddings, and they'll never win because he's a cheapskate. Okay, fine. Now all of a sudden, all GMs in every sport are now being criticized for not being Sinden-like.
Right.
It's incredible the way everything is flipped over.
Yep.
I don't get it.
We'll be back to the show in a minute, but let's thank our sponsors right here. And then right now we've got Game Time. Do you remember your first NFL football game? I do. I remember going into the New England Patriots and the Cincinnati Bengals. It was 1985. It was the last game of the regular season, and the Patriots had to win to clinch a wild card spot in the playoffs. And what did they do? They went out and beat the Bengals. They won the game. And I honestly remember this game very vividly because I was 11 years old at the time. And after the game was over, all the fans stormed the field, ran down, ripped off the goalposts, and carried it right out of the stadium. I wanted to go down and do it and join the crowd. My dad said, absolutely not. There was no friggin' way you're going down there. And that was my first memory of seeing an NFL football game live. It was an awesome game. It was back in the Tony Collins, Steve Grogan, Tony Eason era, Stanley Morgan, all those guys, Andre Tippett. Great time to be a Patriots fan. But that brings me back to Game Time and going to NFL football now and going to a Patriots game at this point and how great that is. Wouldn't you want to have tickets to any of those games? Well, that's what you can get at Game Time. You take the guesswork out of buying tickets for NFL football, for Major League Baseball, for concerts, for comedy, for whatever. You take the guesswork out of getting those tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. There's so many great features with Game Time. All-in pricing, toggling this feature shows the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Game Time ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Game Time is the gold standard when it comes to buying tickets for pro sports, for entertainment, for anything. So I'm going to tell you one more time. You want to download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. It's true. No, it's definitely true. Well, it's funny. So I forget where I read this, but Pierre Dorian, when he was in charge of the Senators, had said that, like, recently, like, the arbitration process, like, they had two of the three guys that they took to arbitration with the Senators were no longer with the team within 2 years after that. Like, because it's like it's become a situation where, like, today's athlete can't handle the arbitration process and gets so disillusioned or, you know, whatever, upset about it that they can't repair in their mind. They can't wrap their brains around, like, getting past it and just moving on.
Not everybody could be Tim Thomas.
Right.
They tried to trade me when I was hurt. So I'm going to take all the Bruins paint off my goalie helmet.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go back out the next year and win the damn Vezina and the Conn Smythe.
Right. And it's like, you know, F you to the world, and I'm going to, prove everybody wrong, like that, which is like the right attitude to have, you know, while not like causing a 3-ring circus to talk about your feelings. You know what I mean? Like,
that's right.
Yeah, I think that's kind of I just wonder, like, given Jeremy Swayman's makeup, which is extremely, like, strong-willed as far as proving people wrong, I think, and as far as, like, answering questions about himself, and, like, I think there's a sensitivity there with him. There's no question about it, but I think there's also a drive within him that's making him as good as he is, like, pushing him to be as good as he is. But, like, I honestly wonder, given what we've seen about Jeremy Swayman, the human being, Jeremy Swayman, the makeup, is he going to be able to be successful in Boston after all this has happened? Like, I really have questions about that. If this baggage is going to be too much, and it's going to be, like, especially if he holds a grudge afterwards, you know, if, like,
well,
if he, like, feels like,
if it goes poorly.
Hold on, let me finish. Hold on, let me finish. If he feels like let me put it this way. I'm sure he was determined to win this negotiation. after the arbitration process, after being bitter about it, after feeling like he got screwed and badmouthed and all that stuff. He was determined to win this. Let's say he doesn't really win. Let's say they end up getting 8 years, $8 million. He doesn't really think that's a win. The Bruins think they're paying too much. Nobody's happy, which is probably what is going to happen for the right deal, is nobody's really feeling like they want it. Is he going to be pissed again? Is he going to be like constantly talking about this because he didn't get what he wanted and he didn't win the negotiation like he thought he was going to? And is this going to be like the arbitration thing where it's constantly going to be something that he's going to be like talking about and referencing when you're asking about like things that have nothing to do with it? Like, I just worry about that, plus the fan reaction to him. Like, if and when they do sign, if they're not that far apart, that there's going to be lasting reverberations from this whole process that's going to affect Jeremy Swayman, the human being and goalie.
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern. I do think, especially if this team, I don't care if they're losing 2-1 or if they're losing 7-5. If they're losing, then assigned Jeremy Swayman on a Bruins team that's struggling out of the gate, that's going to bring out the torch-bearing mob.
Yes.
And he'll take a lot of blame for that. And it won't be fair if they're losing 2-1, but it won't change whether it's going to happen.
No.
And so it's really imperative that the Bruins get off to a start. I don't have to be as good as it was in the last 2 seasons, 14-1-3, that sort of stuff. I'm not worried. It doesn't have to be that good, but they got. But it can't be bad.
No.
And right now, there's a little bit about this team from an offensive standpoint that the run support might not be there.
Yeah, and I also think Jeremy Swayman and the Bruins, frankly, because they're both involved. It takes two to tango. I think they're both putting him in a position where he's not going to succeed this year. Like, he's being put in a really difficult spot as a 25-year-old goalie without a ton of pro hockey experience to jump on a moving train, miss all the training camp, and then try to get things going in season. He's going to struggle. And that's on top of being the number one workhorse goalie when he comes in for the first time in his career, without having like a Linus or a Tuukka next to him to kind of take the pressure off. Like, you're talking about a lot of different things that are working together against him and not really putting him in the best position to succeed. So I think all that stuff that you're talking about could happen because I think he's going to struggle. I think he's going to have an adjustment, a period of adjustment and struggle based on missing camp and based on being the number one guy that maybe they're not thinking about right now.
No, maybe not. There was a goal scored by Quinton Byfield scored a hat trick last night.
Yeah.
But one of his goals was a putback, and he just, really overmatched Parker Wotherspoon in front of the Boston net. Wotherspoon tried to have position, tried to reach on him. Byfield was standing up high, top of the crease, swatted a puck.
He's just a big, strong dude.
Yeah, past Korpisalo inside the post on the ice. You'd like to think that the goalie in that situation is going to cover anything low.
Yep.
That made me wonder if a team can generate some ugly goals against the Bruins because you don't have an elite goalie, you just have a good goalie, then I'm not sure that they've got the offensive firepower right now to mitigate that difference between the goaltending that we've seen over the last couple of seasons in Boston. Yeah. Those goaltending has been outstanding the last couple of seasons in Boston. Linus didn't win the Vezina because the Bruins were a wagon. They were a wagon because he was winning the Vezina.
Yep. Yeah. No, I agree. I think both, on both sides, I think there's going to be struggles this year. Like, I just think based on the way things have played out and based on Korpisalo being the backup when Swayman comes in, based on it being Korpisalo and Bussy if Swayman's not here, there's definitely going to be like some struggles in net, much more than there have been the last couple of years, and that's going to impact the team too. There's no doubt about it. All right, Mick, thank you very much for joining us, my friend. Let's thank our sponsors again real quick. Prize Picks, you can download the Prize Picks app today and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. Also, any kind of tickets you want to get, take the guesswork out of buying them for concerts, comedy, sports, anything. Use Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. But again, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it, Mick?
Game time.
Game time. That's right. All right, Mick, thanks for joining us, my friend. Everybody else out there, thanks for listening. We'll see you at the rink.